Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope your day is going beautifully. Thank you for clicking on the video. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for viewing the channel as often as you do. I really appreciate it. And today I have a question for you. It's something that I've been thinking about for some time. I have been pondering it really for some time. So now I'm going to ask the question. How do we know that immigrants work harder than anybody else? What have they done specifically to let us know that they work so much harder than everybody else? Yes, I know they work construction jobs, but black people have always worked construction jobs. I know they do landscaping, cutting grass, but black people have always cut grass. So, what are they doing so special that makes everybody think they're working so much harder than everybody else? See, we black people, we don't ever get upset about anything. We know that our parents worked hard, our grandparents worked hard, our great great grandparents worked hard, all the way back to the slavery days, to the point that when they got on their feet and they became successful, now the white people got to go and do something low down to them because they were showing the white people up. They were working harder and they were more successful. Just like now, when they try to compete with black people, they get shown up. So, what are they doing so special that makes everybody think they're working so much harder than everybody else? Can they truly compete with us? We've overcome challenges over the years that if they weren't written down, nobody would even believe. Through hard work, we built successful communities. Then there was a reason to come and tear up the neighborhood, take their land through the law of eminent domain or other kinds of trickery, drown the city, burn the city down. In Seneca Village in New York City, well, you're just going to have to get out of here because we're going to make a park for white people. Those people had a thriving community, schools, churches, businesses in Seneca Village. And that happened all over this country. And it was because black people worked hard, but we never get credit for it. How do we know they work so much harder than anybody else? They don't have anything to show for all this work except bragging about working harder than everybody else, but we don't really see the results of that. I don't see anything that they've done so innovative and so different that I could point to it and say, oh, yeah, that's because the immigrants did that. I mean, cutting grass and picking fruit and working on construction sites, that is nothing new. There is nothing new about that in the United States. It's really, really disingenuous. It's cheap. It's just sorry that people make a big deal over these immigrants all because they want to work these people for less money than they do everybody else. Because really, let's face it, that's what this is all about. And it's also about shaming black people. They want to shame black people because slavery ended and they couldn't work black people for free. And yes, they're still mad about that because they never had it so good as when they had black people working from can to cane for $0. They were calling black people lazy back in the slavery days when those people were working from sun up to sundown, making no money, and they were still calling them lazy. So that's another part of it. They want to shame black people because black people are not going to work for them for nothing and are not going to work all day doing back-breaking work for $3.50 a day. So as part of it is that they want free labor. They always want free labor, and they want it from black people. Well, we're going to see how hard they work because Donald Trump is running as many of them up out of here as they can. The reality is the work in the United States has always gotten done. These people are Johnny come latelys. And as one of my fourth grade students said years ago, if the Mexicans work so hard, why didn't they just go get Mexicans across the border to come here and build this country? Why did they go all the way to Africa to get black people? See, that's a good question, and that's a question they will never be able to answer. Why didn't they just get all these hardworking Mexicans and bring some hardworking Indians and Chinese to work over here? They passed Chinese exclusion acts and did everything they could to keep those people out of here until slavery ended. So to keep from paying black people to work, they brought all of these immigrants in and had black people working in a so-called sharecropper situation, which is nothing but another form of slavery. They were robbed. They were robbed in that so-called sharecroppers system because the black people could never break even. It's just trickery all around. Black people came up out of slavery and built towns and cities and institutions and communities and farms. Black people owned 19 million acres of land in the 1920s, and they didn't get the 40 acres and a mule. They had to buy that land and they worked that land and they still swindled black people out of a lot of their land through the law of eminent domain, through trickery, through foreclosing on their property, all kinds of stuff like that. And still black people rose up and pulled themselves up by bootstraps that they didn't have and made something out of their lives. And even now, black people are not even poor. When you look at the Census Bureau, we are 85% of black people live above the poverty line. Only 15 to 12 to 15% of black people are actually poor. And they love to compare black people with white people. White people have had opportunities that black people could only dream about. But yet they want to always compare themselves to black people. I don't consider that superior at all. So these people do not work harder than black people. Nobody in this country has worked harder than black people. Nobody in this country works harder than black people. They make a big deal out of these Asians and these Indians. I guess they're Asians too. But the reality is America's number one export is black American culture. They can't do anything. Ain't nobody else in this country doing anything that anybody wants except black people. But that's what they won't tell you. We work harder than anybody in this country, and we've made a greater contribution. So when they start talking about those people working so hard, what we need to say is they don't work any harder than anybody else. Because if they did, they would have something to show for it. What is it that we can say, okay, this country is so much better because the Mexicans came, or this country is so much better because of the Indians, or because of the Chinese? Nothing, nothing, nothing. So they are lying. That's a lie about these people working so hard, and there is no evidence of it. So I Googled the question, how do we know that immigrants work harder than anybody else? And this is what the co-pilot said. The co-pilot said there is no universally agreed upon statement about whether immigrants work harder than anyone else. Immigrants work a variety of jobs similar to native born Americans, and their work ethic can vary from individual to individual, just like any other ethnic group. They don't work any harder than anybody else. And another thing, America never talks about the excellence of black Americans because they're jealous. Kendrick Lamar did that Super Bowl halftime, and we've had white people complaining because there were no white people in the performance. See, if there's some white people in the performance, then there was some kind of way they would figure out a way. Well, that's about American culture, because then you become American. But he had an all black cast. And guess what? That thing has gone viral all over the world. Everybody is dancing to that little beat. Just that little piece of music that he did. When I look on my Facebook reels, that's all over social media. Tupac sung "How Do You Want It?" just became viral. Just an old piece of music. So they don't like to talk about our work ethic. They want the narrative to always be something negative about us. And they want to talk about these other people. It's a poor dog that won't wag his own tail, so we're gonna have to start wagging our own tail. We work the hardest. We work the hardest. We work the hardest. I've been wanting to say that for a long time. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening. Give me a thumbs up and have a good evening.